You can't expect integrity in any economic sector of a culture when you have profound ignorance about that sector. And one of the quickest and most efficient ways to create ignorance about a sector of the culture is for the government to take it over.
Hey, Reluctant Preppers. This is showing you just how easy it is to purchase silver without paying any premium over spot price. You just go to sdbullion.com/RP, scroll down and enter the special code to get silver without any premium, and they'll mail it to your mailbox, discreetly packaged. Inside you'll find a beautiful 10-ounce bar of fine silver, and you are able to purchase that and have it and add it to your stack and your collection without paying any premium. And you're supporting Reluctant Preppers along the way. Thanks.
As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com.
Welcome back, Reluctant Preppers. We're delighted to have this returning guest. Joel Salatin is the co-founder of Polyface Farms, hosted out of the Shenandoah Valley in the southern U.S. He is a worldwide speaker and expert author and consultant on all kinds of permaculture, ways that you can maximize the yield of healthy food from a minimal amount of space, and also help people understand how to work around unreasonable and non-commonsensical rules and regulations that would stand in the way of their food liberty. Joel, thanks for returning. We call him our activist farmer. Joel, thanks for returning again to Reluctant Preppers.
Thank you, Dunning. It's great to be with you as always.
Whenever I read reviews of your live appearances at conferences and all kinds of Mother Earth fairs and all kinds of things around teaching, bringing up college interns onto your own Polyface Farms, and on and on and on. Unanimously, people praise the generosity of spirit, the positivity of approach, in a field that's fraught with conflicts of interest and wrongdoing and everything. You just keep buoying right up again with your buoyant spirit and helping people to just feel empowered and to get moving and to get doing the right thing. And it's just, we just have to thank you for being such a force for good in this world that has got so many shadows. You're a bright light, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. You're very kind. Super.
If you could check in with us tonight about food integrity, we've had some big concerns coming out. Most people are aware. Well, I won't say most people. Let's just say many people who listen to this channel may be aware, and an increasing number of people in general may be concerned about being able to make informed choices on what they put into their own body, what they feed their children, the wholesomeness of the food they may set aside as storable food for emergencies. We keep learning. I think it was maybe a quote from Thomas Edison about saying, their food will be their medicine and their medicine will be their food, that in some sense you really are what you eat, and it really does matter, and that we've been sold a lot of really bad ideas, and they've affected our health individually and as a nation. And if you could just, now I guess just pushing fast forward right up to the moment, we've got some serious concerns about GMO that's not being labeled in our food. We've got serious concerns about things that are labeled as organic, but it ain't what it used to be. It doesn't mean what it used to mean. And we've also had some major high-profile corporate buyouts like Amazon buying out Whole Foods Market, et cetera, raising some real concerns from people going forward on food integrity. Will we be able to maintain the knowing what we're getting and where it came from and what it really is, or are we about to lose basically any ability to really have that being aware and prepared consent, informed consent? So if you could kind of address that with us, maybe starting with some of those concerns that people have had about some of the food integrity, the reasons why food integrity is so important, and what are some of the ways that it's at risk?
Yeah, well, it's certainly a wide open discussion. I think that I would like to open the discussion simply by pointing out that you can't you can't expect integrity in any economic sector of a culture when you have profound ignorance about that sector. And one of the quickest and most efficient ways to create ignorance about a sector of the culture is for the government to take it over, whether it's education, medical care, financial institutions. As soon as the government intervenes, the operative term is as soon as the government intervenes with oversight, suddenly everybody breathes this big sigh of relief. Okay, government's got my back. It's all okay. I just have to wait for the bureaucrats to make the decisions, and all is well. And that is one of the biggest misplaced faith that's ever been fostered upon people. And so, if we go, for example, to organics, which was the National Organic Standards Program was started 25 years ago or so, 25 years ago. And at that time, I was vilified by my friends in the organic community by not getting on board with this. It's going to be the greatest thing. I said, no, the government's going to own the word. The government's going to, deal with it. And before you know it, it's going to be a bunch of fraternity cronyism, special interest, blah, blah, blah. And so now what do we have? We have, here we are, a couple decades later, and we've got massive shiploads of corn and soybeans being imported into the U.S. that came out of China and went through Istanbul, Turkey, and suddenly the shipments changed from conventional to organic with a couple little paperworks in Istanbul and imported to the U.S. under organics. And, of course, those countries can use chemicals and pesticides that are banned in the U.S. So it's not just like U.S. stuff being mislabeled organic. It's 10 times worse than the U.S. stuff being labeled organic. And now, of course, the organic, the whole national program, just 2 weeks ago, officially voted, and they're going to continue certifying as organic produce grown in soilless systems, hydroponics, aquaponics, aeroponics. And if you subject any of this, fruit and produce to nutrient testing and keepability, taste, all those kinds of things, but primarily nutrient testing, they're dismal failures. It looks pretty, but it's it's just show material, and the whole National Organic Standards Act talked about soil development and soil systems. And so now we're seeing a huge number of people, the old stalwarts of the organic program, wanting to completely break ranks. This is the first denominational change. We've got the Presbyterians, now we're going to have the Methodists, and we're going to break ranks and start either an independent or a total subgroup program that is soil based. The Cornucopia, who are my friends, Cornucopia, they're the industry watchdog. I mean, they've been filing lawsuits against the USDA for, like 2 a year for the last 10 years, telling them, look, just enforce the standards against, factory farming, factory dairies, factory chickens. They hire airplanes to fly over these, mega organic farms, that aren't adhering to the rules of the organic program. USDA just throws it away and says, it doesn't mean anything. And the whole thing has now been essentially corrupted and adulterated with cronyism and fraternity, industrial stuff. And to where now when people ask me, well, who's the enemy? It used to be Monsanto, Monsanto, Ciba-Geigy, Archer Daniels Midland, whatever, that was an easy enemy, easy to demonize those bad entities. Today, the new enemy is industrial organics. because at least the industry doesn't purport to do anything good except produce volume and destroy soil. At least that's all they say they're going to do. The organics, they're charlatans. They come with clerical robes on and then preach lies. So this is where we've come to. GMOs, similar situation. It's hard to track that down, and then now we have the Amazon Whole Foods buyout. We have not that Whole Foods had much integrity to start with, but Amazon has even less. And the first thing they did in the first week of official policy change at Whole Foods was slash beef prices by about 25%. Well, guess who's going to take that on the chin? The farmers. There's going to be cutting corners. I mean, Whole Foods already was cutting corners and cheating, and now do you think Amazon's going to be any better? And so we see this, from the organic to the GMO to the Amazon, you see this kind of overall, it's easy to throw up your hands and say, well, where do we go then? What's the next place? And so I hope that people are beginning to realize you can't trust the government, you can't trust the big corporate sector, you can't trust the big global CEOs, and this is where we come down to the best, the most the best functional equity in your life is what you can know in your community and where you are. This kind of what I call community equity, and there are all sorts of equity. There's stocks and bonds, cash. There's knowledge equity, skill net equity. There's all sorts of equity, but one of the best equities in the world is relational equity. And when things start to collapse in integrity and in quality, and you can't trust things, what reasonable people do is, rather than asking for more government and bureaucracy intervention, is you actually begin retracting and coming back to community and relational equity, because those are places that we can personally control, we can personally know something about. And so we simply move out of the supermarket, we move out of the big grocery store, we move out of the conventional global network, and we begin essentially creating a sub-network, a sub-tribe, a help group, if you will, that is underneath or outside of this, kind of global fraternal tribe of infidels, of infidelity, and so what I'm getting at here, what I wanted to move us to, is to understand that the answer to all of this is not, well, we need a government that's bigger than those bad guys. We need more intervention to protect us from that. No, we have tried that. We have tried that over and over and over again, and it always moves us to fraternal cronyism, bureaucratic incest, and compromise and adultery and all that stuff. So the thing to do is to understand, if I want something to be different, I need to know about it. I need to become knowledgeable about it. And that means I need to turn off Netflix. I need to, turn off the Kardashians for a while. And I need to learn about integrity food. How do I do that? Well, I go visit some farms in the community. Yes, I mean, like, we don't go to the soccer games this week. We go visit farms. What we spend our time and money doing is simply a physical manifestation of the seriousness of our conviction and the passion of our hearts. And so if we really do care whether the kids get pesticide-laden food or nutrient-dense food rather than fake food and pseudo food and adulterated food, if that really does matter to us, then, we don't just sit around and whine about it. We actually do some things. What's the definition of insanity? Is doing the same thing over and over and hoping for different results. And so, it's time to do some different things over and over. And the different things over and over is to actually start participating so that we start connecting and we start getting knowledge. When you don't know anything about something, the first reaction to something that I don't know anything about is fear. We fear the unknown. We fear what we don't know. And so if we want to move toward faith, then we move our lives into a place where those things that we fear right now because we're ignorant of them, we move to a place of knowledge. And we can't move to a place of knowledge without doing repetitious experience to gain mastery and skill and knowledge about this particular thing. And so, if you need a surgery, for example, you ask around nurses and stuff. They know who the good doctors are. If you've got an engine problem in your car, you ask around, what mechanic, treats you right. You ask around these things. And we need to be doing the same thing about food, and realize that there's an entire very active, very enthusiastic kind of guerrilla heresy here, that is producing and functioning very well in this integrity food space. It might not be the most convenient. It might not be the most accessible, the one-stop shop thing. You might have to put a little bit of effort into it. But, can you imagine shopping for spouses like we shop for food? Look, I want him already pre-made, pre-cooked and pre-wrapped, pre-packaged. I want it all set so I don't have to know anything, do anything. I just pop him in the microwave, say I do, and we're wet. We would never think about spousal selection from a convenience standpoint. We put effort in that, and the same thing is true, with our food and farming system. We have to put some effort in it. We've been subcontracting out that effort to other entities for a long time, and we know now that we can't trust them. And so it's time to refocus our energies into entities that we can trust, and that is building relational and knowledge equity in the system.
You've talked to us in the past about how people can both increase their own production on their own small scale. We had those of us who have very limited ability to use large land and make big gardens. You talked to us about how feeding your family on 0 acres using vertical gardening techniques and permaculture and all kinds of things like that. You've also talked to us about cooperative networking, and that's what you're getting at here, about being able to exchange the right things with the right people where where it's come from. Why is that so important? Because I really think that a lot of people have kind of lost sight of that. We've really been lulled into complacency, thinking that we have no choice but to trust that. I guess if they can sell it in the store, it must be safe to eat, that kind of thing. But
yeah, it's a great. I would simply. I'm going to make an assumption here that probably there are numerous reluctant prepper followers who are homeschoolers.
Yep.
Would that be safe to say?
It is.
And so imagine 25 years ago, if somebody came to you and said the word homeschooling, you had never heard it. You didn't know anything about it. All the teachers said that it was a horrible thing, and that when we started 30 years ago, over 30 years ago with our oldest, we were told by the expert educators, why goodness, we won't be able to build enough jails to hold these miscreant kids, and psych wards will overflow because of these socially maladjusted, children, all this stuff. And yet through that, there was this steady, straight, apologetic and proponents of homeschooling that created curriculum, that created the thought process, that argued the psychology of it, the philosophy of it, the value of it, and here we are, 30 years later, and we have state homeschool conventions. Thousands of families come to these things. I mean, they're major. They take over. Here in Virginia, they take over the whole Richmond Convention Center. With thousands of families and vendors and booksellers and robot makers and chicken pen dealers, and I mean the whole gamut. It's unbelievable, and so there is now this incredibly thriving, sustaining, regenerating tribe that promotes something that 30 years ago was considered completely non-existent, and not even really attainable or appropriate. Who would have guessed 30 years ago that by now we would have these, the opportunities that we have, or the alternatives that are so convenient, that are accessible, curriculums, easy to buy books. I mean, when we started, you couldn't go to any place to buy curriculum books. We went down to the school auctions when they were discontinuing books, and those are the books we bought for our kids. You couldn't get curriculum books, back in those days. And so people have to understand the food system today. The food system today is basically where the homeschooling system was 30 years ago. And if you and there is a nascent but very vibrant undercurrent here of food heretics, of unorthodox producers, distributors, marketers under the radar, and we are functioning, we are producing. We're building soil. It's nutrient dense, cool stuff. And we got the Weston A. Price Foundation, we got the paleo folks, we got the grass finished, we've got the grass farming folks, and so here we are, and to raw milk, to whatever, and here we are, and all I'm saying is that in our frenzied, hurried, harried, noisy world, we're sitting here just slogging along, making it happen, doing it, and what we need are millions of families to finally have that final drop hit on their head and said, you know what? I just ain't going to find this at Walmart. I'm just not going to find it at HEB. And once you make that turn, just like the homeschool parents who kept looking for, whatever, the conservative teacher in the classroom, the Christian teacher in the class, the whatever, and finally that final drop said, you know what? The system's broken. I'm not going to find it here. And they made that big right turn into something considered heretical, and it was like being, washed in truth.
Like set out of prison free. My wife and I, actually, a very recent thing, our people on our channel have heard several times me talking about our struggle with Lyme disease. The antibiotic regimen on top of that has given us candida overgrowth. Then the antibiotics and so on that she took also gave her liver troubles. So we get this stack of ailments that we're realizing we've had to now clean up our diet, almost eliminating most carbs and having to replace it with more fresh things. Our son and his fiance are getting married later this week. Gave us a very high quality juicer that we're now making, and we have to use organic only things because the concentration of the nutrients in there is so great. And we're just hooked on these daily fresh juices now, and And then you go back, you walk back into that store, the big box grocery store, and it just looks like a desert. There's just nothing. You can walk aisle after aisle. All you see is corn syrup and just junk.
Yes, that's exactly right. I do a lot of traveling, and I go through a lot of airports, big airports. And I may not have eaten for 10 hours. I may have been on a long flight, and I walk down through there, and there's nothing. It's like there's no food here. There's nothing here. And so when you get to that point, when you get to that's when you begin. That's when you really start to thrive.
And it's like it must be like a chicken about to chip its way out of its eggshell or something. If it's like or it's like passing through what feels like death in order to break through into something that feels like life. And one of the things that's dying, and people have to acknowledge their pain about this, is that we have this childish expectation in our heart that the world shouldn't be this way. It's like we all believe we should be in the Garden of Eden, and it shouldn't be this way. You should be able to trust people in positions of authority. You shouldn't have to finally say, okay, I'm throwing in the towel. I'm going to take care of my own health. I'm going to have to do my own research. I'm going to have to do my own diligence and everything. And there's just that. It's not just laziness. There is that natural fallen human tendency to laziness, but there's this other part of just realizing it shouldn't have to be this way, but it is. And so you finally get to that point.
And not only that, but you feel like, why should truth be this hard? Why shouldn't truth be the default position? And yet we know that the world does not love truth. It's truth is not the default position. The lie, the charlatan is the true default position, and it takes effort. It takes effort to not be taken in by the stuff that has collapsed civilizations from the get-go, and will no doubt collapse ours in due time. And so building that hedge of protection of relational and skilled equity around ourselves is, it's better than Wall Street. It's wonderful. It's wonderful equity.
Well, Joel, we could go on, but we are out of time today. I would like to dig further into this in the future. We'd like to have you back again, and just remind people where they can find more about your work and your books and your writing and your speaking.
Sure. Our website is Polyface Farms. That's Polyface. Polyface, you just plug that in and it'll pop right up. And there's a whole website there of everything from, educational things to YouTubes to my speaking schedule where I'm traveling, that sort of thing. And I'd love to see any of your followers at those events.
We've been talking with Joel Salatin, the co-founder of Polyface Farms. Joel, as always, thank you for joining us as our activist farmer here on Reluctant Preppers.
Absolutely. Always my pleasure.